Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6:30. As authorized by Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, this meeting may be convened into closed executive session for the purposes of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney on any item on the agenda at any time during the meeting. The City of Bastrop reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. It is 6:30, and I'm calling this meeting to order. We are very privileged this evening. We have two different groups with us that will be saying the pledges. The group that will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance is led by their teacher, Brianna Teal, and it is our FFA organization from Bastrop High School. We have two seniors with us tonight. I'm sure they're enjoying the beginning of their senior year. We have Christopher Spooner and Michael Hunking. They will be leading us in the U.S. Pledge. And immediately following that, we have Bastrop High School's Junior ROTC, led by Command Senior Chief Jake Burchett, who is also a senior, Lieutenant J.G. Reno Richard, who is a junior, and Ensign Abigail Henriksen, who is also a junior. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will please stand. You guys can just step forward. You're perfect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Cadet Pledge.
Senior Chief, this cadet's cadet pledge is, I am a Navy Junior ROTC cadet. Always conduct myself in management current to my famous school and Corps cadets. I am the future United States of America. I am loyal and patriotic. I do not lie, cheat, or steal, and tolerate those who do. Always be careful of my actions and deeds. Always practice citizenship. I will work hard to improve my mind, straighten my body. I will seek to mental leadership, stand prepared to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Hoorah!
About face.
And if you will remain standing, Pastor Bernie Jackson from Trinity Zion Ministries will lead us in tonight's invocation.
Let us pray, please. Almighty Father, we come before you tonight, Lord, thanking you once again for your grace and for your mercy. We come tonight, Lord, asking that you would continue to help each and every one of us to see each other as you see us. Help us to learn to love, Lord God. Help us to learn to forgive. And then, Father, where there's division, Father, we ask that you would bring us together so that we would be on one accord to serve one another and please you. We ask, Lord God, that you would take away all of the anger and all of the fear and heal our land, Lord God, so that we can be the children that you made us to be. We ask tonight, Father, that you would bless this council, Lord God, that they would continue to do the business that would bring peace and well-being to the citizens of Bastrop. Guide them, guide their families and their homes, and all the employees of the city, Father, that take care of the citizenry. Father, we thank you for Jesus, and it is in his name that we pray. Amen. Amen.
Yes, they're seniors. They have another meeting, and I assured them it was fine to leave. So we really appreciate them helping us. Thank you very much, Captain Fletcher. Thank you. Okay, tonight we have a few proclamations, and different council members will be reading for different reasons. City Manager, do you have a few words first, or is Councilmember Nelson going first? All right, so we're on item 4A if you're following along. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Proclamation of the City of Bastrop. Whereas custodial workers contribute to the important first impression and success of any business, and whereas custodial workers operate behind the scenes and are often underappreciated for the hard work they do day after day, keeping facilities clean and well maintained. And whereas the City of Bastrop recognizes the often thankless job performed by these dedicated workers today and as a reminder year-round. Whereas October 2nd has historically been observed as National Custodial Workers Recognition Day, The mayor has affixed her signature, and this is the City of Bastrop Custodial Workers Recognition Day proclamation.
I want to just take an opportunity as the mayor and council member Nelson come to the front, and I'm going to ask our custodial staff to come to the front. And I want to recognize Josie Castellanos, Charles Elliott, Angie Perez, and Alma Rodriguez. You know, one of the things that Walt Disney teaches in their customer service training is that our customer service experience starts well before you actually get in a facility. And whether or not you have issues or you have an impression that's favorable or not, typically dictates the kind of service that you're going to have. One of the things that I always say to people is the next time you go to a big box retail, I want you to get out of the car, and if there are buggies in the lot and there's trash blowing in the parking lot, you shouldn't be surprised that the first person that speaks to you is the checker. Well, the great thing about our staff is they're really 4 of the hardest working people in Bastrop. They move with purpose. They have a lot of facilities to clean, and from the time they hit the door, they'll speak to you, but they're steadily moving. Good morning, Miss Linda. And boy, they're sweeping, they're doing, and they keep this building clean. They have a sense of pride, and from the time you pull into the parking lot, as you come through this building, you're not going to find trash. You're going to find things cleaned up, picked up, and a level of ownership and pride that I think speaks to the service that we as a city give, and it starts and ends with these 4 folks right here. So if you will, please join me in giving them a round of applause for the great work they do every day. Trey, why don't you join them? Thank y'all.
Okay, another thing that's going on this month is fire prevention. And I got to ride in a fire truck today. It was, just saying. Councilmember Ennis and I were involved in a program that Chief Wobus invited us to a meeting earlier today. There were 200 smoke alarms that were given out to both folks. Some folks physically have a challenge installing fire alarms, and quite frankly, some folks have budgets that just don't stretch to include a smoke detector. These smoke detectors have 10-year batteries, and they're good for 10 years. So they're essentially disposable after 10 years. So those were being installed today, and I got to ride the fire truck to the house where we were installing. They didn't let me hold a fire hose or anything, which is probably a good thing. But Councilmember Ennis has a proclamation for the fire prevention.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,500 people in the United States in 2016, according to the latest research from the nonprofit National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to more than 300,069 home fires, that's 369,000, excuse me, home fires. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and whereas only 1/3 of Americans have both developed and practiced a home fire escape plan, and whereas almost 3/4 of Americans do have an escape plan, however, less than half have actually practiced it, and whereas 1/3 of American households who made an escape plan estimated they would have at least 6 minutes before a fire in their home would become life-threatening, the time available is often less. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in a reported fire in half, and whereas Bastrop firefighters are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire deaths and injuries through prevention and proper education, and whereas Bastrop residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes, and whereas the 2017 Fire Prevention Work Theme, Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out, effectively serves to remind us to develop and practice a home fire escape plan during Fire Prevention Week and year-round. Now, therefore, the mayor does hereby proclaim the week of October 8th through 14th, 2017 as National Fire Prevention Week.
Fantastic. Chief Wobus, if you'll come forward.
Sure.
Okay, for those of you following along, we're now on the bottom of page 1. We're on 4C, and I'm pleased to bring Pastor Jackson back up, and she's going to make a presentation regarding why the city manager and I are wearing purple tonight.
And I thank you all for wearing purple. I've run out of purple. This is like 10 days in, and I just don't have any more purple right now. I'm going to do a brief presentation for you all tonight, and I know sometimes we hate when people get up and they start spouting off statistics, but when you look at Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we have to look at the statistics, and the Family Crisis Center is asking each of you tonight to join us as we observe Domestic Violence Month in the month of October. So, do you know, in the state of Texas, 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime? Did you know that every year in Texas, more than 100 women are killed by an intimate partner? 1 in 3 victims of domestic violence seeking shelter in Texas will be turned away solely because of a lack of space. 72,782 victims of domestic violence and their families were served by family violence programs last year. More than 80% of women with children experiencing homelessness have been victims of domestic violence. Some people ask, why doesn't she leave? Leaving is not always equal to safety. Likewise, in the state of Texas, 37% of women killed in 2015 had ended the relationship or were in the process of leaving when they were murdered. 61% of those women were killed with a handgun. Family violence often follows a predictable pattern. Friends, family, and community can help if they know the warning signs. We hold firm to the conviction that each intimate partner homicide is knowledgeable, predictable, and preventable. We challenge all of Texas to go purple and strive for a state where no woman loses her life as a result of family violence. We have asked the city of Bastrop to partner with us this year and stand against domestic violence, and they accepted the challenge that we laid out to them. They have been very helpful. We believe knowledge is power. We have several events planned over this month where we can bring information and education to our city, to our community. We're asking all of you and the citizens of Bastrop to go purple on October 19th. And if someone asks you why you're wearing purple, tell them you're standing against domestic violence. We also When you leave this meeting tonight, if it's dark outside, you will see that City Hall is lit in purple. If you look across the street, you will see the Convention Center is lit in purple. If you go across the bridge, before you go across the bridge, if you go to the library, it is lit in purple. You go across the bridge and the PD's office building is lit in purple. They are standing with us against domestic violence in 2017. I'd like to introduce to you this evening the other part of our campaign. It is called Paint the Pines Purple. We have already taken out probably 8 or 9 of these trees today to different businesses and to banks. And what we're asking the businesses to do is to have this tree somewhere in your lobby, in your building. A lot of there are different themes where we have some where men are pledging to stand against domestic violence. We're having some where people are pledging that they're not going to laugh at that joke when somebody says, oh, I just have to beat her to keep her in line. So we're asking that if you would like one of these trees to have them in your building, in your business, the remainder of the month, we'll be happy to deliver it to you. You can educate your employees. We will come out and also do presentations. We have a presentation called The Cost of Intervention. Prevention is cheaper than intervention. And we will come out and do those presentations for you. They're less than 30 minutes long, and they're free to you. Again, as I end this, we want to thank you, City of Bastrop, for partnering with us. If it were not for some of the things that you have done, we would not be able to host the Teen Summit on October 28th at the Convention Center, where we're expecting 145 kids to be there so that we can start prevention with the kids before they're adults. So thank you. Let's go purple. Knowledge is power. Mayor, City Manager, I'd like to leave that here because my car won't take it. You all can have it, or we'll come back and get it tomorrow. Thank you for the time.
So if you're following along, we're now on the top of page 2, 4D, and you will not be surprised that the next proclamation is about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Councilmember Jones?
Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender, and income levels. And whereas domestic violence is widespread and affects over 4 million Americans each year. And whereas 1 in 3 Americans have witnessed an incident of domestic violence. Whereas children that grow up in violent homes are believed to be abused and neglected at a rate higher than the national average. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And whereas only a coordinated community effort will put a stop to this heinous crime. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month produces an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, our Mayor, Connie Schroeder, Mayor of the City of Bastrop, does hereby proclaim the month of October 2017 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urges the citizens of Bastrop to work together to eliminate domestic violence from our community. Do I need to read that last sentence? Okay, good.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Reverend Jackson, you want your picture taken with the proclamation for your website? Oh, yeah, the answer is yes, you do, by the way. I'm being told.
Yes, I do.
We need that for October 19th for our social media page, so.
October is a busy month. As you see, as we move to item 4E, it is also National Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places, and whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation, and whereas the month of October is designated as the National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorse National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment, and whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the City of Bastrop, and whereas the City of Bastrop has received the Comprehensive Planning Award from the Central Section Texas chapter of the American Planning Association this past year, and whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional planners of the City of Bastrop and the volunteer members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustments, Historic Landmark Commission, and the Construction Standards Board, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals and volunteers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the month of October 2017 is hereby designated as Community Planning Month in the City of Bastrop, Texas, in conjunction with the celebration of the National Community Planning Month. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Bastrop, Texas, to be affixed this 10th day of October 2017. Clearly, planning staff, if you would please come forward. If you're in the audience and you're on any of those boards, if you would also come forward, we would love to take your picture. Yes, Mr. Gaddis, that's you too. All right, here we go. Thank you, guys. Okay. Now we're at 4F, and Trey Job has a presentation for us. He's going to visit with us about the tennis program that we had. Mr. Job.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know we have the upcoming Boards and Commissions banquet on the 9th of November, but I want to take a minute to just say thank you to these folks that made our tennis program possible this year. Maybe. There we go. Last spring we held a tennis program. It was a great opportunity. Lost Pines Toyota helped out, the Liriano Family Foundation, Bastrop High School head coach Robert Artis, who won't be here tonight because he actually, due to some rain delays, he had to play his last game tonight in District 19 5A tennis against Georgetown Eastview, so he won't be here. The athletic department, and then there were several volunteers that made it a success. What was great about it was, the event was free for participants. The Liriano Family Foundation donated $1,000, which allowed all the registration to be free. The kids had a great time. We had an attendance of 50 plus every time we held it. We plan on bringing the program back this year. They're going to redo the courts in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to give them some downtime where we can start doing the logistics. And then after talking to the coach and learning a little more about their tennis program, I just noticed there was some good life lessons that can be learned from tennis, and not everybody plays football. So it's a great program. We're glad we got to put it on. I just wanted to tell everybody thank you, and I've got a couple plaques over here for our photo opportunities, one more for the night, and then we'll call them up. I'm done.
Carlos, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you share just a couple of the stories of the parents and the feedback and the importance of this program that were shared with you throughout the season, because I think the community would really appreciate the real success behind this program.
Well, thank you. This program really just came because of a conversation that Trey and I had and the coach, and my son Michael plays tennis at Bastrop High School. So we just sat one morning and brought the school system, the city, and the community together and held a class that ran. First they had a clinic, because we had kids that had never ever picked up a tennis racket before. And then they started a little league, and it lasted about 6 weeks. We had 50 or 60 kids at every Saturday morning. And for me, what was most important is we had parents come to us and say their child could not play football. They're not big enough to play football, but all of a sudden they're playing tennis, and they're dragging the parents out to the tennis courts on Saturday morning, and then on Sunday, and then on Tuesday. It was just so exciting to have these kids involved. And the parents, it didn't cost them anything. The city provided the courts, the rackets, and we just, Los Bastrop, we just did what we normally do, just help out where we can. And, to have all of the kids so excited about this sport, it was just a wonderful thing. And the main thing that I want to say tonight is that when we work together, we can accomplish great things. The city, the school system, the community, businesses. It's a great day in Bastrop, and we certainly appreciate Trey and his staff and all of y'all for also providing this. But the atmosphere was awesome, and the kids enjoyed it, and we enjoyed it too. So thank you.
Mayor, if I could, Carlos, you do what you did with tennis in a lot of areas, and I just want to personally thank you. You have been, ever since you've come here, you've been really big about bringing the community, the city, and the school together, and I'm very, very happy you picked Bastrop as your home, and thank you very much, because it's not just tennis, it's a lot of other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Isn't it wonderful to be in Bastrop? There is just not a better community. We are moving on, and the numbering is weird, but it's on purpose, and you'll kind of get it if you stick with us here. We're now on item 10, individual consideration. We're only going to consider one item, and then we'll come back to items of individual consideration, but we are at 10A. Consider action to approve Resolution R2017-83 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving terms of engagement with Bajorquez Law Firm, PC, authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents, repealing any resolutions in conflict, and establishing an effective date. I am happy to take a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 2017-83.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff and a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any discussion?
Well, I'd like to say something.
Good. Go ahead.
Just want to pat myself on the back. I think we selected a great attorney for this city. I'm just happy that Alan is here to take care of us. Thank you, Alan.
Outstanding. Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, seeing no discussion, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Outstanding. We are honored this evening to have the Honorable Judge Chris Dugan with us, the State District Judge for District 423, and he is going to swear in our new city attorney. So I am turning it over to Judge Dugan.
You ready? When you are, Your Honor. All right. Thank you. You come right over here. When you hold up the right hand, it blocks my face. We don't want to block your face. If you will repeat after me. I, Alan Borquez,
I, Alan Borquez,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of City Attorney
of City Attorney
of the City of Bastrop,
of
Texas,
the City of Bastrop, Texas,
and I will to the best
and I will to the best
of my ability
of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution,
the Constitution,
laws, and ordinances
laws, and ordinances
of the United States,
of the United States,
of this state,
of this state,
and of this city,
and of this city.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So council, I want to give you an opportunity if anybody has any comments that they want to make to welcome Mr. Borquez to our city. Any comments? Mayor Pro Tem says he's already made his comment, so I just want to give you an opportunity. You don't have to, but Councilmember Jones?
I'm excited that we have got all the parts in place for the city now, and just a really excellent group of people. It's such an honor to work with this council, this manager, this mayor, now this attorney. It's just, we have the best, so I'm very proud to be part of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. I want to share just a couple of quick things, and I'll go over it in a little bit more detail in my mayor's report, but the city manager, myself, and Councilmember Nelson were at the TML annual conference last week, and TML stands for Texas Municipal League. There's all of the municipalities from little bitty to really big cities are all together, and it's a great learning experience. But I have lost count of the number of people that walked up and said, "You guys hit a home run. He's awesome." So it's really nice when you get that kind of feedback from folks that know and folks that are in that community. Speaking of community, we're doing all we can to pull this community together, but it may not surprise some of you that we're not quite there yet, and there are a few folks that don't always agree on everything. But I am pleased to tell you that I personally got phone calls from different folks who I know very well don't ever drink coffee together and probably don't hang out much, and all of them said Alan Borquez is a fantastic choice for the city of Bastrop, and that was confirmation for me personally that we made a good decision, and I'm just thrilled that he has joined the team. Based on that, We're going to I'm going to call us into recess. We're going to take about 15 minutes and enjoy some cookies, and I would encourage you to introduce yourself to Alan and have a handshake. Welcome to the team, Alan. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:21, and I'm calling us back to order because the Mayor Pro Tem's pointing out that we still have 2 more pages besides this page, so we've got to get going. We are at 4G. We're in the middle of page 2, which is the mayor's report. And my report is a part of the packet. For those of you at home, or if you're here with your iPads, you can see the 2-page report, but there's just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Over the last few council meetings, I have been doing a minute with the mayor on different topics, and the topic I want to talk about tonight is safety, and it's specifically traffic safety. Some of you know, some of you do not know, that on a Saturday morning, around 10:30, we had a pedestrian that was struck in the sidewalk of Chestnut at Pecan. Crossing in the crosswalk, crossing with the light, struck by a car. Fortunately, although it resulted in a surgery on Sunday morning and the person is home and safe and doing well, and Chief Altgeld sends major regards to the care that they received from both the City of Bastrop Police Department and our first responders. She's fine, but it could have been much, much different. And unfortunately, last night we had a fatality with someone walking along Highway 95. They were going home after a movie and they were struck by a car. The point of this is please pay attention. Please be safe. The text isn't that important. Answering your phone is not that important. We know it's 7:20 and it's already dark outside, but we've got kids. I personally have a granddaughter that's still at a volleyball game. All of the activities keep going on. If you've got your headphones on, Chief Altgeld was telling me that, you know, the kids that are riding their bikes or walking along the road and they've got their headphones on, they can't hear the car. Please take personal safety. As a grandparent, I'm going to re-lecture my grandchildren on the importance of being safe. I would encourage the rest of you to do that. And it's not only fire prevention, it's not only domestic violence, it's situational awareness to remain safe and to take care of each other. So that's my minute with the mayor. I want to see everybody back at the next council meeting. The things that I've done since September 26th, some of the highlights, the city manager and Sean Kirkpatrick, the executive director for the Economic Development Corporation, the 3 of us do retail visits, and we did 3 more visits on September 28th, and we've now been to 8 of the top 10 sales tax generators from our retail businesses, and fortunately they're always glad to see us. And I will tell you that the most common thing that we hear is nobody's ever come to see us before. And sometimes they just want to visit for a minute, and sometimes they have some real concerns, but what they do have that they didn't have before we got there was a face with a name and a business card with a direct phone line. So we are thrilled to have the wonderful business communities that we have here in Bastrop. We did a ribbon cutting with CPR, which I think is really cute. That's cell phone repair, but for those of us who depend on our phones, it does feel like a heart attack when your phone quits working. And they're a family-owned business, and they were real cute. They had their kids with them at the ribbon cutting. We were glad to do that. On Friday, September 29th, I was at the Best Breakfast, and a couple of you have asked me. That was my 137th event, and since I was sworn in on May 16th. Not that I'm counting, but it was 137. National Night Out was scheduled for October 3rd. For those of you with a really good memory, it was raining really hard on October 3rd, so that has been rescheduled for October 17th, which is next Tuesday. I think I already mentioned that Councilmember Nelson, the city manager, and I went to the TML annual conference in Houston. We divided and conquered. They had breakout sessions, and we tried to cover every topic that would be of interest to Bastrop, and I printed out my notes. Of course, they had an app, TML 2017 app, and you could take notes as you read about the speaker. You could take notes on the app, and then you could download all the notes, and I printed them out today, and it was over 5 pages, and I was like, wow, I need to really go back and read and organize all of those, but we got a lot done during that time. And then on Friday, we left in time to be back here for a 5:30 meeting, and then did a little bit of the first Friday art walk. And then on October 7th, which was just this past Saturday, I went to the Home Depot annual safety event. There's really a theme going on in October with safety, and met some of the guys from BACA, and also visited with the Veterans Car Show that'll be coming up on November 10th and 11th. And that was a really neat event, and if you missed it, I encourage you to keep an eye out for it next year. Coming up next Monday is the monthly meeting for BEDC, and next Thursday is the State Park public meeting. It's the second State Park public meeting, and I skipped over a couple things. Tomorrow night is the Main Street is organizing a Imagine the Possibilities broker tour, and if you might see several of us walking up and down Main Street. I will be by myself, but I am going to take mayor executive privilege, and at this time there's a very good chance my husband is watching online, and tomorrow night is our 14th wedding anniversary, and I will be at the Imagine the Possibilities broker tour. So I'd just like to tell him happy anniversary, honey. On Thursday, I've got a ribbon cutting in the afternoon, and then there is the 12th annual Bluebonnet Scholarship Golf Tournament and dinner. I'll be going to that, and then I'll be leaving that in time to make it to the TxDOT open house for FM 812. So it's going to be pretty busy, but I promise to do a shout out for Friday, October 20th is Teen Night at Fisherman's Park. It is a joint effort between the YMCA, the Family Crisis Center, and the City of Bastrop. It's for kids ages 12 to 15. It's the very thing that Carlos was talking about, when the community works together and does things for the kids in our community. And the last thing is October 23rd is when early voting starts for the November 7th election. I believe there are 7 state constitution amendments, so I'm letting you know now because it may take some studying and reading between now and November 7th. Give you a heads up about that. And there is several things covered in the election. I know BISD has a bond election on that ballot, and some of the WCIDs, different ones, depending on where you live, your ballot's going to look different. I would encourage you to go to the Travis County Elections Office. If you put in your address, they'll show you what your ballot's going to be and what you'll be voting on November 7th. Our community does better when more people participate, and when you go in as educated as you can be to make the best decision that you can when you enter the voting booth. With that, Councilmember Peterson, do you have anything?
About all I have, Mayor, is I had a chance to meet with the State Fire Marshal this morning. That was an exciting time us talking with him, and I really, really admire the plan the City of Bastrop and the State Fire Marshals got into with getting the elderly residents and people who need the fire alarm smoke detectors. That was a very, very nice gesture, and I thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Councilmember Nelson?
Yes, ma'am. My calendar is not quite as busy as yours, thank goodness. On September 27th, I was able to accompany the mayor and our city manager to the TML Region 10 quarterly meeting in Leander. They need to have it inside next time because it was quite hot outside, but nonetheless, everybody sweated equally. It was a great opportunity to exchange thoughts and ideas with other policymakers within our region. Then on the 30th, I went to the big truck event at Bob Bryant Park. It was well attended, and everybody seemed to be having lots of fun, lots of laughter and horn blowing. You can discover how high you can jump when they let off an air horn. I have a 24-inch vertical leap, I found out. That was a little bit unusual. And then on October 4th and 5th, or October 4th, 5th, and 6th, I attended the TML conference in Houston with the mayor and city manager. It was a great educational opportunity, as well as a chance to meet with other policymakers who are experiencing the same or similar problems and addressing similar issues that we are here as a city. So it was an outstanding time in Houston.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Nothing for me.
Councilmember Ennis.
Well, I was supposed to accompany the mayor and the city manager and Mr. Nelson to TML, but I've been down under the weather, so I don't have a lot to report.
We were quite happy that he chose to keep his germs at home and not bring them to the conference. So we missed him, but we did not miss his germs. Councilmember Jones?
I just got back last night from a humanitarian trip to Cuba. There were 4 of us from Bastrop. We were part of a 13-member team, and we were just really proud to represent the city and be able to take some relief to this island that has been so hard hit by the hurricane.
I'm anxious to visit with you offline about your trip. Thank you so much, Councilmember Jones. City Manager Umble, anything to report? All right. We are on to a very exciting item as far as I'm concerned. Discuss the partnership between the city and Senior Center regarding the FEMA building scheduled for completion in February 2018. City Manager.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and council members, we wanted to bring an opportunity to you that I think is really a win-win type of a situation. Several months ago, we had an opportunity to meet with Barbara Atkins, who is the president of our Senior Center Association, and was reviewing the lease and talking about some of the challenges that they have and some of the challenges that we have. And then Hurricane Harvey hit, and we came to appreciate the lack of depth that we have in our organization and the critical need we have to partner with volunteers in the community. All of this to say that the city is currently building a FEMA shelter that is at the parking lot just down the hill from Public Works. And it's going to be opened in March. And while that is an awesome amenity to the community, it takes people to staff a shelter. And what we know from previous emergencies, and really saw this with Hurricane Harvey, if a storm is as big as Harvey and runs from Lake Charles, Louisiana, all the way to Corpus Christi, that's a lot of real estate. And folks like the Red Cross have just so much capacity, and we as a community have to be willing to help ourselves. And so we came to appreciate that we needed some help. And so after putting our heads together, Trey Job and I met with Barbara and other members of the Senior Center Board, and we posed this opportunity to them, and they were amenable. And I didn't want to bring it to you if they were going to tell me no. And so they are very interested, and should you bless this tonight, they'll take it back to their board. But here's what we'd like to propose, is that the Senior Center move from downtown Bastrop and use the FEMA building as a full-time senior center. They understand that should a shelter be required to be opened, that it will cease to be a senior center. At that point in time, what they will do is step up to the plate and augment our team. Mickey Duvall, who is our library director, is responsible for sheltering. Our library staff is trained, but we've come to understand that when you're trying to get a lot of people in the door, get them processed, it takes more than 2 people. If you're there, your world is upside down, you have more questions than you have answers, you need a friendly face, you need somebody to hug on you, and you need somebody to just pat you, tell you it's going to be okay, and you need to go stand in that line. And as I smiled at them, when you earn grandparent status, you get a lot of privilege us young folks just don't have. And so they offer not only depth, but they offer a level of customer service skills that we truly need. We talked about how this might work, and what would happen is that our team would come in, the Parks Department would come in, we would utilize things that we would store in a container, and so we would move their stuff out, move shelter stuff in, and we'd put their things in the container and lock them up, and those things would be cots. This is going to have a main sleeping area. It will have a kitchen that will allow us to serve meals. There's individual rooms that they can eat in. It has showers. It'll have a washer and dryer, all the things that are required for a FEMA shelter. When it's not being a FEMA shelter, what that affords them opportunity to do is individual rooms for card games and dominoes, and the ladies that play bridge don't have to get in the business of the men that play poker, and we've solved a lot of those problems. They have a big main room where they can eat, and they have their Tuesday functions, and they have dances. And so it is really as good a match as I think we could do. It helps them, it gives them much needed room, it gives us depth that we need when we need it. And then they vacate a building downtown that provides us an opportunity perhaps to either repurpose or tear down and get some much needed parking. But that's really a conversation for a different day. What I'm looking for today is your blessing to move forward with a lease agreement with the Senior Association. Trey and I have agreed to meet with their boards with their membership individually, answer any questions. They need to take a vote, make sure this is something they want to do. Included in the lease agreement would be requirements to participate in an annual event where we would actually move their stuff out, move our stuff in, set it up, walk through it so that we know what we're doing, they know what they're doing. They would have to be trained as shelter staff, just as our staff would be. They've made the commitment that they would be willing to do it. And those functions would be assigned to actually their board of directors. So one of the requirements to be on the senior board would be to be willing to participate in this training and be present and active when needed. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. They're very excited, we're very excited, and I'm hopeful that you're as excited as we are.
So Council, I'll remind you that we're on a work session and briefing, so really we are not looking for a motion or a second. We're looking for comments, questions, and nods of, gee, that sounds like a good idea, or I have something I'd like to add. Mayor Pro Tem Shipp.
Yeah, I just want to back the clock up a little bit. Before the city manager, and actually before the mayor was here, there was discussions about the property over in Bob Bryant Park that was set aside for the Boys and Girls Club. And when the shelter came up, there was a potential opportunity there to build the shelter on that property and to let it be used by the Boys and Girls Club. You know, they give up the land, which they were losing. There was a year limit on how long that land was set aside for them. Anyhow, a lot of discussion went on. In the end, we ended up moving the center to the north side of town, and I just want to know that we haven't lost sight of where the Boys and Girls Club are. If they, we talked about potentially that they could maybe use school facilities, et cetera, but I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of where we came from on this, that it started out kind of going in the direction of the Boys and Girls Club being able to use the facility. So
Trey and I have met with the gentleman that's in charge of the Boys and Girls Club. We actually had a resolution on last council agenda to extend that. They asked to pull it. So they still want to pursue the Bob Bryant Park. It will be on your next agenda, I think. I have visited with Christy Lee at the school. They have most of their after-school programs taken care of and internalized at the school. But when Trey and I sat down and met with the individual, they are still very excited about that program because we don't have any infrastructure or plans to expand that park at this point in time. We told them we didn't believe there would be a reason to not pursue an extension, so we'll have that on a future agenda to take care of that. So that's still moving along and really is not.
Could the senior center, the old senior center, be used as a Boys and Girls Club facility, at least temporarily?
That is a different conversation for a different day, but I will put that on an agenda so that y'all can debate that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. Any other comments? Councilmember Jones.
I just want to give my support to the city manager to move forward as she's asked us.
Thank you.
To directors.
Very much. Councilmember Ennis, are you getting ready to say something? Okay.
I'm proud of the partnerships that we're forming in all areas of our city operation with the community, and I think this shows another step in that direction, and I applaud it.
Excellent. Councilmember Peterson, Councilmember Nelson, either one of you any comments? Councilmember Peterson?
Just one comment. I want the mayor and Public Works to go ahead and pursue this and talk it all up and make sure we get all the I's dotted and T's crossed.
Excellent. Mayor
I would like to add, I think the plan is a great plan. I just wanted to make sure that we took into consideration whatever the Boys and Girls Club's needs were.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Councilmember Nelson?
Well, we know the devil's in the details, but what's not to like about this, multi-purposing a facility as well as utilizing the knowledge of the senior association, I'm fully supportive.
Well, if I had a situation that caused me to leave my home and be forced into a shelter, there isn't anybody I want to hug from but Barbara. So I think this is a fantastic idea. So City Manager, you have what you need.
I sure do, and we'll be in touch real soon.
And they are off to hear the kitchen pickers and share their good news. So do not feel that you're being rude. You may leave whenever you like. All right, I'm going to go slightly out of order because we have a gentleman that has already been here for quite a while today. So if you guys will possibly indulge me, we're going to jump to 7A and then we'll come back to 6B. 7A is for us to receive a presentation and brief overview. The name is different. The person that you see listed had a family emergency. We'll be hearing from Brian Sullivan tonight. He's going to talk to us about the legal uses of hotel occupancy tax, and it looks like Ms. O'Brien's going to introduce him. Ms. O'Brien.
Just really briefly, I know we talked about hotel occupancy tax funds at our previous meeting. Today, Brian actually hosted an hour-and-a-half workshop here in the council chambers with all of our fiscal year 2018 hot fund users, and so I just invited him to come tonight and give you guys a very brief overview. I promise it won't be an hour and a half, but Brian is fantastic. He's also a fellow lumberjack, hospitality administration graduate from Stephen F. Austin State University, so not dead.
I appreciate the plug, Sarah, and Madam Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Brian Sullivan. I'm one of our 3 attorneys with the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we are the statewide entity that represents lodging interests in Texas. We have existed since 1903, so when it comes to hotel taxes and eligible uses of those funds, I guess I would say we're qualified to speak on this subject because we helped write a lot of these laws, if not every last one of these laws. So just a kind of a quick and brief overview of the dedicated use, if you will, of hotel occupancy taxes. You as a city government, of course, deal with a number of different revenue sources. Sales tax, for example, being a general revenue source that you have at your disposal to use for any priorities that the city may have in operating the city of Bastrop. When it comes to hotel taxes, though, they are treated very differently under state law. Whereas sales tax would be a general use tax, hotel taxes are in fact dedicated taxes under state law. So there's generally a 2-step approach that you would implement as a city to approach any expenditure or proposed expenditure of hotel occupancy taxes. And that was the crux of the presentation that we had earlier today, this afternoon, here in Chambers for about an hour and a half, was going through the ins and outs of that process. But I just want to briefly kind of give you an overview of what that is. So the first step in that 2-step process is that every expenditure of your municipal hotel occupancy taxes must directly enhance and promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry. That is our gold standard, as I refer to it, under state law. If you were to open up the 6-inch Texas tax code and take a look at hotel taxes, that's what you would find. And the important thing there is to remember that every last dollar that exists in your hotel tax account is there because a room night was sold. And so the state law was set up and was written in such a manner that the sole industry that generated those funds must receive some direct impact back on that industry when they are then utilized and invested for events or advertising or whatever other eligible uses there are under state law. So that's the first step, is just that legal standard in meeting that test. The second step comes to a prescribed category of uses in the tax code, for which Bastrop qualifies for 9 different categories of funding under state law. So I'll kind of make mention of each real quick. The first is for your convention center and visitor center. And to my understanding, you do in fact utilize some of your hotel taxes to help pay costs associated with those facilities, and those are eligible under state law. The second category is for registration of convention delegates, and this is when you host large meetings or have major events that might require staff to be on site to help facilitate and conduct some of those administrative tasks associated with the event. The third category of funding is for advertising and promotion. And this is where we see most communities using what I would call the lion's share of their occupancy tax revenue. That being because when you brand Bastrop around the state and beyond, when you market yourselves effectively and promote your area and generate tourism and hotel stays here in Bastrop, we really have a unique opportunity through the hotel industry to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. Because when a tourist comes to Bastrop, they're doing much more than just staying in their hotel room. They're eating in your restaurants, drinking in your bars, and going to your attractions, your museums, etc. So we really like to be that economic driver. The fourth category is for promotion of the arts. And so we talk about promotion of the arts. This could be your music or theater, dance, various forms of art. But hotel taxes can be utilized to help promote those types of events. Fifth is historical restoration and preservation. Of course, here in Bastrop, there are probably a number of areas or programs or even facilities that might qualify for this category of expense. We talk about what is historic in Bastrop. Well, that's quite literally up to you all. The state of Texas does not tell you that it has to be a certain number of years old to qualify as historic. That is a judgment call for you all exercising your fiduciary duty to make as a city. The sixth category is for sporting event expenses, and this is a category where you can actually utilize hotel tax to help pay down some of the costs of hosting a sporting event. There's some additional criteria. It gets a little more complicated than that. I'm happy to advise offline and working with your new city attorney, who I assure you knows this very well. Category number 7 is for existing sports facilities and whether or not you would choose to use hotel taxes to help fund improvements to some of your existing sports facilities. Category number 8 is for tourism-related signage. This is your directional signage that would show a visitor where, say, the convention center is, or the visitor center, or the downtown square area, that type of signage. And then finally is transportation of tourists. Most likely this would be in the form of a shuttle service of some type. This is how we see communities implement using this category to fund some of their, basically getting tourists from local hotels to your hot spots, to the reasons they're here to participate in a festival or to go to the convention center or something like that. So generally speaking, that's the two-step process. First is meeting that legal standard under the law. Second is fitting the expense within an eligible category of funding. And of course, you as a city have the opportunity to use your independent judgment to make your own calls about what types of applications are priority for funding in Bastrop, what types of events are going to have the biggest return on your investment in terms of producing room night revenue and having an economic impact here in Bastrop. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Mr. Sullivan, I just want to thank you for being here and especially for taking the time to visit with our the people who are utilizing those funds. I think it's really important that they all heard the same thing at the same time. We all play better when we clearly understand what the rules are. So I want to applaud Ms. O'Brien for bringing you in. Thank you so much for spending your time. Council, any questions do you have for Mr. Sullivan? Councilmember Jones?
I would just like to have one of your cards before you leave, please.
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
That was an easy question. Anything else?
That's the easiest one I've ever gotten.
There you go. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you, Madam
Sullivan.
Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Okay, now we're going back to 6B, discuss proposed organizational work plan for fiscal year 2018 to 2022.
Mayor and council, as a part of your retreat, you outlined for the organization and the community what your vision statement was, your mission statement, and you gave us 9 focus areas. You also identified a list of priorities of the things that were important in your mind that needed to really be at the forefront of what we did. We, as staff, went on a 2.5-day retreat, and I want to first of all say to the community that I've been doing this a long time, and I want to take a moment and brag on the cabinet that I'm blessed to work with every day. They came prepared. You know, it's one thing when city managers issue requests and participation, and a lot of times, you know, we get patted on the head and they kind of check the box. Well, they didn't check the box. They had clearly met with their team, clearly worked hard to answer my call, which was, what do we need to do to position Bastrop to achieve the vision and the mission statements that were proposed to you as we move forward? The challenge that I said to you during the retreat has proven to be absolutely the case. I said to you early on that my concern was managing expectation because of the lack of capacity that we have in our organization. We spend a lot of our day working to provide the services that we provide our customers, and so there isn't a lot of extra bandwidth for the extra things. And I'm doing all of that as a caveat because what we have provided you is a 5-year work plan with, I think, somewhere between 175 and 180 items, 117 of which are green for this year. And I will tell you that we all know we can't do the 117 green items, but we couldn't figure out what to punt to next year. So that just speaks to the need that we know has to happen, but I will sit here today and tell you there's no way we're going to get it done. That just underscores what I knew and I can now prove, which is we have a lot of opportunity. What we have attempted to do is prioritize or itemize the work plan items by your 9 focus areas. That's the first sort we did. The second sort was by color, and that's by the year that we think we'll get to it. Now, we know that we've got 117 items in 2018 that we're not going to get to, so that will get pushed off until 2019. Trey really summed this up well at the retreat after we went through and we agonized and we talked and discussed and really built it on Wednesday and Thursday, and we slept on it Thursday night. We came back, worked on it again on Friday. What we decided was fiscal year 2018 is really the year of process. There's a lot of process that needs to get in place to get our house in order to own the future that we know we have coming at us. I say that to tell you that I'm sure as council members, some of your favorite projects are not green. I'm also sure that there's people in the community that look at this and go, wait a minute, you're not going to get to mine for 3 or 4 more years. It's not that we don't want to, it's just that we can't. So I am presenting this to you this evening so that you have an opportunity to review it, comment on it. It's open for discussion and negotiation as far as what year is what. I am prepared to make this a part of my performance evaluation as long as we appreciate that I have been set up to fail. Just because it's got 117 items this first year and physically we just cannot get it done. But these were the things we weren't willing to say we could wait, 24 months to do either. So I'm asking for grace, I'm asking for input, and just to get your feedback, but this is a starting point. I visited with Councilmember Ennis, who asked, okay, what happens next year? And it's the same thing. Every year we'll do a retreat with you. You'll have an opportunity to validate your vision and your mission statements. Some of the things that we thought were important this year, next year, we'll look at them and go, you know what, they're not as important as we thought. Because other opportunities will happen this year that we just didn't know were coming our way. That was the other really thing that concerns staff is every day is a new day in Bastrop, and every email, every telephone call, every customer concern we have provides an opportunity for a new problem to solve. And it doesn't have any of those in this. These are just known things today. So our concern is what don't we know that ought to be in here that will be added. So with those caveats, I'm very proud to present to you what I think is a wonderful first attempt at an organizational work plan. It is that first attempt. Moses didn't bring this off the mountain. It's not etched in stone, but it is a place for us to start work from, and it is at least a parking spot that as you have other things, we'll put it on the list.
So for those of you at home or those of you in the audience, I would point out that you will find this in the packet from page 30 to page 52. So the document that she's talking about is available for the public, and as a person who served on planning and zoning and was intimately involved in the comprehensive plan, it warms my heart that the majority of items are tied back to the implementation chapter of the comprehensive plan, so you know exactly why it's on the list. I too, just like the rest of you, get those emails, and when they are of personal safety, there's some things we just absolutely have to address, even if it wasn't on the 117. But I would encourage all of us to realize that we worked together at the retreat. We gave a mission and a vision and set an outline for our staff, and this is a response to that. So I would caution each of us, including myself, before you call the city manager and say, hey, what about, think about which of the 3 projects of the 117 you're willing to take off, because it really is, it's just more than they can say grace over. So I am practicing when citizens come and they have great ideas. It's not that it's not a great idea, it's that we physically can't get to it. I've learned to say, that's a great idea. I am absolutely going to add that to the list. And when we go to the retreat next year, we'll be reviewing all of those things. But we just have to give staff the fighting chance to do something with this information that they've worked on. Ships don't ever get anywhere if you are constantly changing the compass setting. So I will climb off my soapbox and give council an opportunity to give some feedback to the city manager. Any comments?
I would say, this is a great document. It's scary, but it's organized, and I think the fact that you got the staff together, I'm addressing the city manager now, that you got the staff together, the senior staff people, to focus on those items that we brought to the table and at least list them out so that you know what that mountain looks like. That's a good start, and you got to start with the first step. So I commend you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anybody else? Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, I will say to the manager, this is a very good work that I used to call a strategic plan, where you put down your goals, your objectives, and you work at them the best you can. But this is well put together, and thank you very much.
Excellent. Any other comments? Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, every journey starts with that first step. and I think we've taken the first step. I particularly like, I want to echo the mayor's comments relative to tying it to the comprehensive plan, as well as tying it to the priorities, tying it to the mission. And it's an outstanding document. It's arduous reading, but that's what we signed up for. So I really appreciate the work that you and the staff did on this. I don't know how we're going to accomplish it. We just tell you the what and the whys. You had to come up with the how and the whens, and I think you've taken that step, so I appreciate it.
I don't think this council realized when we were sitting going over our priorities that it would produce this incredible, eventually produce this incredible document. But I echo Councilman Nelson's comments 100%, and I'm proud of the work you've done, and I'm proud of our staff and you.
Let me share with you how this will actually operationally play out. Each one of these items has a responsible party, and the first department listed is the lead department. Every one of these items is assigned to somebody. Each one of these items will be in their individual work plan on a page assigned to somebody within that department. Quarterly, I will meet and review my team, as you will do with me, on a semi-annual basis. And so by the end of October, each one of them will have built a work plan, will assign it to somebody, and then at the end of each quarter, I will have quarterly reviews with each one of the cabinet members, and they will go through the work plan and we'll talk about where we are. On a semi-annual basis, in May, I will give y'all a mid-year update. And then in November of every year, I will talk to you about what we've done from the year. Over the course of the next 60 days, some of these we will have individual retreats. And I like to start with the end in mind. When do we need the information? We'll identify who the stakeholders are, and we'll put together a schedule and a calendar and expected deliverables so that I call it eating an elephant. And you got to start with that first bite. You got to chew it up and swallow before you take the second bite. So that's how we'll manage this, but it is absolutely a living document. Not only am I going to be graded on it, but they will as well. So this is already going to become the way we do business internally from an operational standpoint.
Thank you so much, City Manager, and I also want to thank your, not only your immediate staff, but they also have to have their staff supporting them to get the work done. I will assure each of you, as hard as it was to put the document together, nothing will feel better than checking it off as complete. So you do have that to look forward to. City Manager, I think that's what you needed for that item. So we are now, and from now on, we're going to roll in order, but we are now at the bottom of page 2, 7B, receive staff presentation on the 2017 Lost Pines Christmas Festival season. And what a love, the Norther came in, so you have a full day to talk to us.
I made chili on Sunday night to wish fall here, so I'm glad it got here. So y'all want the good news or the bad news first?
Good news, always, always.
76 days until Christmas.
That's bad news.
Has everyone started their holiday shopping yet? I just wanted to take an opportunity to tell you guys about some changes that are happening with our Lost Pines Christmas Festival. And I'm not a certified historian, but I think I have a lot of the information correctly. We've still got a great season lined up for you guys, and I just wanted to inform you and the general public about what's happening. Wanted to start with a little information about why downtown organizations, Main Street programs, chambers, visitor centers, DMOs, why do folks do downtown events? And there's a variety of reasons. One is obviously for the positive economic impacts that they can have. Some events are specific to generating retail sales, getting folks inside the doors and making the cash registers ring. Some events are intended to attract people from outside of town. Some events are intended to be community events. Some events help programs develop their brand and tell their story. Some events can be fundraisers for specific programs or projects. Some events are just to get people downtown, so maybe they'll see a store that they'll come back and visit later when they have a need. Obviously, some events that bring in a lot of outside vendors help to grow and attract new businesses. In my previous life, I was known as the event killer, and so I wanted to go over these because I think that every event that we spend our time doing, and we know how precious our staff time is, has to meet a specific purpose. The reason that we've always done them are because no one else will doesn't fit in today's day and age. We have to be really strategic in the events that we do. A little bit of history. Lost Pines Christmas was originally started by a hardworking, dedicated group of volunteers with the Downtown Business Alliance and was really just a weekend festival. They have had all types of things throughout the year, from ice skating to different retail events. It was mainly a street festival and instilled a large amount of community pride and spirit. The city helped offset some of the expenses with that event through hotel occupancy tax, and it was always volunteer driven. Several years ago, under the leadership of Dick Smith, the Main Street Advisory Board Chair, started packaging our various holiday events together as part of the Lost Pines Christmas season. And so what originally the DBA started as Lost Pines Christmas Weekend drew into a season of events that the Main Street program helped in partnership with the Downtown Business Alliance to coordinate and promote, and especially a lot of that distance marketing to get these events outside of the Bastrop area. We also, the Main Street program, started a couple of small special events throughout the course of the Lost Pines Christmas. Last year we added Wassail Fest. Several years ago where they added the wine swirl. What's happening this year is due to changes with volunteers' energy levels and staff resources levels. We did not have anyone step up to the plate to spearhead the actual street festival portion of Lost Pines Christmas weekend. And so we've taken our lemons and made it into lemonade. And so I'm really excited to show you guys what we're going to do. We are partnering with Visit Bastrop to do our distance marketing. You guys noticed that the Downtown Business Alliance didn't actually apply for any hotel occupancy tax funds to market this event this year because we've got Visit Bastrop. We're making sure that most of our events that we're hosting downtown are retail and economic impact driven so that they have a positive effect on our bottom line. We are still looking for volunteers, so just because we don't have a volunteer army like the DBA had coordinating the street festival doesn't mean we don't have places that we can put your student groups or your organizations to work. It is mainly being sponsored through the City of Bastrop's Main Street program, as well as the Downtown Business Alliance is still helping to coordinate the Christmas parade and several of the other activities. It is a zero-based budget. We're not intending to make any money. We're going to spend a little bit of money, but this isn't intended to break the bank. And we are still looking for sponsorships. I do want to take a quick second to thank BPNL, Prosperity Bank, and the Bastrop EDC who have already signed up to sponsor this year's event. And then I'm just going to go through really quickly because I know it's getting late. Our first weekend kicks off on Saturday, November 25th, which is Small Business Saturday, started by American Express a few years ago, and it's Wassail Fest. For those of you that don't know, wassail is a spiced apple cider. We did our inaugural Wassail Fest last year. Those are actually pictures of our merchants dressed up in costume. So it's a great day to encourage folks to come downtown to shop locally, knock some items off their Christmas list, enjoy the wassail, and dress up in their festive costume. Our second weekend will be our holiday edition of our First Friday Art Walk, and then what started last year and I think is one of my favorite events is the Snow Day that's presented by the Parks and Recreation Department down at Fisherman's Park. This event is geared for the kiddos. They're still lining out all the details, but expect snow, expect a children's movie. They'll have some vendors down there with hot cocoa, so you can look at the revamped Trail of Lights along the Riverwalk as well. Weekend 3 is kind of what I would like to call the grand hula of all of it. That'll be our annual lighted Christmas parade on Saturday evening, but we will actually kick off Thursday with the Farm Street Opry at the Convention Center. The Bastrop County Historical Society will host their holiday home tour on Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday night will be the parade. And so it's really an opportunity for folks to come in and spend the entire weekend with us. Weekend number 4 will be the revamped Lost Pines Christmas Sip, Shop, and Swirl. Swirl was started by the Georgetown Main Street program about 9 years ago and has been copied and replicated all across the state of Texas. We've done several swirls in Bastrop, and we really wanted to put a better focus on pairing the food and wine together, as well as getting folks to shop inside our stores. So you'll notice some really exciting changes on December 16th. That is a ticketed event. And our last weekend, we're doing another pub crawl, which we've started this year. We're doing an ugly sweater pub crawl on Friday night. So if you haven't been to Goodwill lately to pick up your ugly Christmas sweater, I encourage you to go get one. And then we're really excited. We wanted to do something just for the kiddos and specifically for the kids. And so it's going to be our inaugural cookie crawl, where our downtown restaurants and merchants will be baking up samples of cookies to give to Santa. So the kiddos will be able to come down and vote for their favorite cookies, and then we've got a whole parade of holiday costume characters that will be joining us the day of the cookie crawl. Santa Claus will be there. We will have the Abominable Snowman. We're going to have the Elf on the Shelf. I just found out today that Shane Sorensen, the director of sales at Visit Bastrop, dressed up as Elf on the Shelf last year, so he's already signed up to help us with this. The Grinch, Cindy Lou Who, and several other folks will be downtown. So that's it. That's the Abominable Snowman. In case you didn't catch him downtown last year, he'll be back again on December 23rd. I'll be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
I would note that my calendar says that Saturday is December 2nd and not December 3rd.
For the snow day?
Yeah.
Yes, and that was a graphic from last year. The Parks Department is still finalizing all of their details, so I apologize. That's last year's graphic.
Thank you.
Yes,
I was
sir.
doing the same thing. Wait a minute.
So definitely go to lostpineschristmas.com. All of the updated event information is there. We just didn't have a specific event graphic yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon.
I'm so glad you plan things in advance, but it seems like it's barely October and it's hard to be thinking about all the weekends in December already. Any comments? City Manager Umble would like everyone to say a prayer that it's cool during December. She's dying up here. Thank you very much, Ms. O'Brien. It's going to be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to the fun. Mr. Job, you can start moving forward. We're on 7C, receive staff presentation regarding the results of the recent smoke testing performed in the Riverside Grove subdivision.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take a minute to share some of the results of the recent smoke test and the kind of things that we're going to be looking for in the future and how important it is to pay attention to your clean-out caps and things of that nature. So everybody wants to know what smoke testing is. Smoke testing is a process to find a leak in the sewer system that serves your neighborhood. The smoke testing works by forcing smoke down the line where you can find leaks that are identified in separations of pipe, cracks, missing caps, things of that nature. The smoke's non-toxic, it's harmless, and it's non-flammable. Why is it important? The main reasons it is important is when there's a large rain event, we have certain flow limitations at the wastewater plant, resulting in something that would be over 2,722 gallons per minute for a 2-hour period could result in a fine, and that will eventually impact your rates. That could also lead to untreated wastewater overflowing into the waterways, negatively impact the environment, things of that nature. The things that we look for while we're performing the test: smoke in the separation of the pipe, like we talked about earlier, missing cleanouts, and broken wastewater mains. When we went out and did our study, due to the large rain that we found in Harvey, we noticed some high flows coming from the Riverside Grove area, which is what we smoke tested there. And we found 90 clean-out caps missing. So some people have a tendency when it's raining, your yard starts to fill up a little bit, you start to get nervous, and you go out and open your clean-out cap. That's a big no-no, so we don't want to do that in the future. So we thought we'd take this time to educate everybody and let them know. Some of the other violations we found, if you can see in the picture, somebody broke the top off, put their water softener discharge in there. But an interesting fact is if 6 inches of water were to cover those 90 missing caps, each one would take 300 gallons per minute. And that's 27,000 gallons per minute headed to that lift station to the plant. So just more that we have to treat. It's a bigger cost, bigger expense. That's what we want to avoid. So how we're going to proceed as part of the work plan this year, which we just discussed, we're actually going to go to each neighborhood. We're breaking them down by basin, and then we'll smoke test each section, do the entire thing over a 3 or 4 year period. And then again, I talked about why it was chosen, and that was due to high volume of rainwater that was entering the system. So after every event, we go back and check and look for these types of items. So what's good about that is it's proactive. It's good for the environment. It saves you money. And it meets all the council focus areas and priorities. So again, this is something we're really going to be pushing hard, going out and checking for codes, pipes that are missing, pipes that are broken. And we want to start educating the public starting tonight, and then we'll continue this campaign throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Job. So just for the practicality of it all, if smoke's coming out, water can go in, rainwater, and so you are then treating in your wastewater plant water that is not wastewater. So you're driving the cost of running the plant up. So that's why we want no smoke. We want that to be a closed system.
That is absolutely correct.
Any questions for Mr. Job? Councilmember Ennis.
Are we planning on, I hate to use the word publicizing this, but I would really like to get this word out that Mr. Job and his staff and are working this project all over the city, and it's another example of, as he said, our focus areas and our priorities and how we're meeting them, and I really would like to see if we can't publicize this as much as possible.
So I was going to ask you, as a follow-up to Councilmember Ennis's comment, I'm sure if you didn't, you will, and I assume you probably did, work with their homeowners association so they could help get the word out. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, we actually went door to door, spoke to everyone, gave them the results of what we found, asked them to pay attention to things of this nature. And we'll, as part of our work plan, again, there'll be a lot more communication with the public, another council priority, by the way. And we may do some quick did you know videos. Did you know if you take off your cap, it lets this much water into the system? Did you know that you can check for a leak by putting some food color in the back of your toilet, that kind of thing. So just some quick snippets to fill up that time on the TV station, all part of the work plan, but so think of that when you're prioritizing what's most important. And we'll just use that to move forward.
Yeah, I think this is way better than what I was picturing, smoke testing, them going to the cigar shop and checking out the stogies. Good job.
Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Peterson?
Yes, Tracy, that was good, but just a question, just for my mind. Yeah. How many plastic caps did you find out there that were struck by a lawnmower and just take the cap off of it?
I didn't actually check for the ones that were hit by a lawnmower. There were 90 missing, but there's quite a few. So that's another thing to look for. And if you run over it, just give us a call. We'll bring you one out. They're relatively cheap. They're sure a lot cheaper than wasting the chemical and the chlorine. And then as we find leaks on the customer side, we'll let them know about it and figure out how we can repair it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments? I really do. I'm glad y'all were talking about doing the videos, and I think that's the kind of thing Councilmember Ennis is speaking to any education that we can do working through the homeowners associations. I would encourage all of us to go back to your neighborhood association and help spread the word. And we're going to make you a movie star, Mr. Joe.
Well, I don't know if I'm camera worthy, but certainly somebody is.
All right, we are moving on. Mr. Brandon, if you want to come forward, we are on 7D, receive staff presentation on the city's application for funding through the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Mr. Brandon.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yes, we thought it'd be a good time to provide you and the public with an update on where things stand with one of our recent grant applications through FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The program itself is a program that's administered by FEMA. They provide the funding and they coordinate that funding through the Texas Department of Emergency Management, and they work with the local government to submit the applications. Each round of applications is created after a presidential disaster declaration occurs. It's the mechanism that provides the funding that's available, and it's associated with a specific event that causes a disaster. So it's, in our case, we see a lot of the floods and fires. They have grant programs for tornadoes and other types of disasters. The main things that we have submitted for in the past include different types of drainage projects. And here recently, we've applied for some property acquisitions and structure elevations. It's a limited funding program that's based on the size of the disaster and the amount of damage that occurs with that event. And so with this, most of us remember last year on Memorial Day weekend how much damage we saw. We had 8.3 inches of rain in just over 9 hours, which is a lot. It completely overwhelmed our drainage system. It was greater than a 100-year storm, and it affected a lot of properties around town. And because of that, we saw that disaster declaration in June of last year. And so just with that specific project, we went through the effort to notify the public, and we sent out letters of what are called letters of voluntary interest, and that is just a form that we get citizens to fill out, just stating that they're interested in knowing what their options are when it comes to the buyouts or the elevations. During that time, we went through the process to hire the grant administration and engineering consultants. We hired Langford and Associates and Bethco Engineering to help us pull all the documentation together and actually submit the application. One thing that's taken this application a lot longer than they normally do is the original deadline was in January of this year, and just before the deadline, they extended the deadline to July, and so we just submitted it here back at the end of July. So we tried to make sure we kept everyone updated as much as possible. We sent letters in October, and we recently just sent another round of letters out, letting them know where we stand with the application. We had a very positive response. We had 19 letters come back, and there was a mix of owners that requested a buyout option or an elevation option. And we also included 3 other drainage projects that would help mitigate damages from properties, mainly around where these citizens live, but also in other parts of the city that we've seen experience damage in the past. So now, when we get into the eligibility requirements through the program, when it comes to the buyouts and the elevations, there's kind of 4 different criteria that they use depending on whether or not your home is located inside the floodplain or and how valuable the home is. And for homes that are valued at less than $276,000, there's different requirements if your home is located inside the floodplain. So there's less information and less effort that's required to demonstrate that that project is what we call cost effective, and that means that it meets FEMA's requirements to make sure that it's a justifiable project and that they're not spending more money to offset a problem that would cost less to mitigate. And so there's also another process that other homes have to go through if their value is a little greater or if they're located outside of the floodplain. And that means that you have to go through what's called a benefit cost analysis. And that process is a little more arduous. You're required to have much more information, and you have to do a lot more work to prove that the project is cost effective in terms of those FEMA requirements. And so we went through and worked with the consultants who were the ones that really pulled all the information together. We looked at insurance claims, we looked at any documentation that the citizens could provide us, whether it be pictures or receipts or any other information that they could give us to show that they had experienced damage over not just this storm, but storms that we've had in the past. And they took all of that information and compared it to all of the requirements that FEMA has to show that they're eligible for those. They coordinated with the Texas Department of Emergency Management, who's the department that actually receives the applications, and they review and approve the applications. And out of those 19 requests, we had 6 homes that had requested buyouts, and because only 1 home was located inside the floodplain, that meant that benefit cost analyses had to be done for the other 5 homes, and unfortunately they were not able to show that with all the documentation that they had, that there was enough damage there to qualify them for a buyout. And out of the 13 homes that requested elevations, there were 4 homes located inside the floodplain. 9 of those were outside of the floodplain. And again, when they went through the process of qualifying those, there was only 1 that actually qualified. And with the elevations, it mainly came down to, even though there were a lot of homes inside the floodplain, there were cost estimates that were put together to not only elevate the home, but you also have to bring that home up to the current building code standards. And when you estimated that cost, many times it ended up costing more than the home was worth. And so FEMA's not going to come in and pay to fund a project like that when it would cost less to just to buy the house. So while we were disappointed with that, we did continue on with the application. We did go ahead and submit the application for the 1 home elevation and the 3 drainage projects. We're currently waiting for the results of that application. We expect those in the early part of next year. If we get those approved, then we'll move forward with those projects. And so probably the main point I'd like to make is, regardless of what happens with this application, we're going to continue to look for any option that we can to help improve our drainage system, whether it be the studies that we're conducting now to just better understand how the system works and what areas we need to focus on, or the other grant opportunities that are available that I'm sure that come up, unfortunately, quite frequently around here. This was just the program for the flood that we had last year. I'm sure there's going to be other grant programs associated with Hurricane Harvey that will provide us with some other opportunities, and we'll continue to look at any opportunities that we can to help not only our system but also the homeowners that are affected by these large storms. And that's pretty much all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Are there any questions from council?
I can get turned on here. Quick question. You may not be able to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What if say if you're on the edge of a floodplain, and the reason that the Corps of Engineers expanded that floodplain was because of drainage issues? And I'm just wondering, if those drainage issues get taken care of, will they go back and reevaluate that particular area?
Yes. They normally do. Anytime a project is undertaken that makes a significant difference in the drainage conditions, take, for example, some of the projects that we have in the works, either through one of the studies that we're working on or through some of the active grant projects that we have. Those projects tend to make a significant difference when it comes to the way the system functions. And so it would require us to go in, or the Corps of Engineers or FEMA, as they update flood maps, they would always need to take into account those projects to get an accurate representation of how the system works.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I'll send one of my representatives over to visit with you, and you can steer me in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Anyone else? City Manager?
Councilmember Peterson, just to give an update, we have had some meetings with HAF Associates on the countywide drainage plan, and I believe the schedule is late January, early February. They will be in a position to have something for public consumption. And so I think some of the long-standing questions that folks have had about Gills Branch will finally be answered. They have met with us They have some additional meetings with the state to factor in some of the improvements on State Highway 71 that need to be factored in as well. They have studied Piney Creek.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have also, to augment some of the work that they're doing, are seeking proposals from a drainage engineer that will go into North Bastrop and study some of our isolated issues that don't really fall under the HAF associates, but are some of the problems that we have identified through the FEMA buyout, so that when we bring this forward in January for the community, that we're finally able to offer some solutions. I will tell you to grab a hold of your pocketbook, because they're not going to be cheap, but at least we'll have identified issues, solutions, and a game plan to do something with it. So I just want to tag on to what he's saying, that we're really working hard to bring that to fruition sometime in January or February, so we can begin to start planning on how we're going to fix these instead of trying to figure out how to solve them.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. I appreciate that. All right, we're at citizens' comments. Madam Secretary, do I have anyone signed up for citizens' comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, we are now on consent agenda. Madam Secretary, well, there's only one item. Does anybody on the dais want to pull anything? Does anybody in the audience want to pull anything? Madam Secretary, if you'll read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Item 9A, consider action to approve minutes from the September 19th, 26th, and 28th, 2017 meetings. This concludes the consent agenda.
I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the minutes for the meeting held on the 19th, meeting held on the 26th, as well as the 28th.
I have a motion. I'll take a second.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Nelson, a second from Councilmember Peterson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Okay, for those of you following along, we're now about the bottom of page 3, and we are at items for individual consideration, 10B. We're going to hold a public hearing and do the first reading of ordinance number 20, it says 2107, I bet that's 2017. That would be a typo. 2017, see, it was a test. They wanted to see if I was paying attention. 2017-27 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, granting a conditional use permit to allow an indoor commercial amusement use for Lot 2 of Hunters Crossing Subdivision, Section 2A, located at 201 Hunters Crossing Boulevard, Suite 14, within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas, providing a severability clause, setting out conditions, and establishing an effective date, and move to include the second reading on the October 24th, 2017 City Council agenda. And no, I did not accidentally skip over consider action to approve. I'm going to let the city manager speak to this item first, or are we going to open the public hearing first? How do you want to do it?
Well, I don't want to steal her thunder, but I will throw myself up under the bus. So we had this particular item scheduled for the Planning and Zoning Commission at their regularly scheduled meeting in September. Due to some really work that only Murphy can take credit for, because sometimes Murphy kicks in and the world just kind of tilts on its axis. We have 9 members and 5 of them could not attend, so we didn't have a quorum. One of the things that y'all have challenged staff, and particularly me, is to ensure that in our development processes that we're being as customer focused and really making sure that we expedite our processes. So when the planning and zoning meeting did not happen, we went ahead and put it on this agenda so that we would not negatively impact our applicants, one of which who has flown in today from Florida. So what is going to happen so that we make sure that we still provide great customer service while meeting our ordinances. So tonight you're going to hold a public hearing and have the first reading of the CUP. Planning and Zoning is going to have a special meeting between now and the 24th, so that on the 24th, when you adopt this ordinance, it will come with a recommendation for your consideration from Planning and Zoning. This is an interesting case that in all aspects of the city would be allowed but for Hunter's Crossing. So not to steal any more of Jennifer's thunder, that is why this is being styled the way it is, so that we can take care of our applicant while taking care of our process.
Ms. Bills, thank you.
Sure.
Just to give you a little background on what the conditional use permit is requesting, the applicant is wanting to do an indoor playground in one of the suites of the shopping center at 201 Hunters Crossing Boulevard. The storefront's approximately 2,200 square feet, and the use will be an indoor playground, soft-sided equipment for children 12 and under, and a seating area for the parents, so that they can play indoors when it's 105 degrees outside, and it's near some residential areas, so that parents have a place to take their kids. You'll see the site right here. It showed up better on my computer. Is the actual parcel is that lot. It bisects the shopping center, and so the storefront is right where there's a missing dot. The adjacent uses, we have the bank to the north, and then the other parcels are all either open space or currently vacant. This lot across the way is in the plan for some kind of multifamily or a high-density residential. It's part of the Hunters Crossing Section 2A plat. The zoning is the Hunters Crossing Plan Development Zone, Hunters Crossing Commercial. And the future land use for this area is general commercial. For the plan development, specifically called out a list of uses, which I included in your packet, that were allowed, and then specific ones that were allowed only with a conditional use permit. An indoor commercial amusement, if I can say that, which is allowed by right in our C1 district, requires a conditional use permit in their plan development document. And their base zoning for this area is C1 for any standards that are not quoted in the plan development. Our conditional use permit requirements, the PD required that it goes through our process, has 5 standards to consider. The first being that is the use harmonious and compatible with the surrounding uses? Is this a normally associated use for the base district? Is the nature of the use reasonable? Is there any negative impact in the surrounding area? And are there any additional conditions that should be applied to ensure that all this is met? And when reviewing this case, this use fits in with the surrounding area. The other uses in the strip center are medical office, restaurant, martial arts space. For 2,200 square foot playground, it fits the area. Standard conditions of a CUP is that it must meet all of our regulations. Building permits need to be acquired before any work is done, and the building permits have to be secured within a year of the conditional use permit being issued. Additionally, any changes to the conditional use of the use, the size, any kind of scope would have to come back to council for a change. Staff is not proposing any additional conditions be added to this CUP. As Ms. Humble covered, P&Z did not make their quorum, but we're working with them to schedule a meeting next week, and they will have the report to the second reading on the 24th.
Sorry.
I was just summing up the three. So the 3 things we're doing tonight is holding the public hearing, doing the first reading, and then moving to include it on the next council agenda for the actual action.
So thank you very much, Ms. Bills. So I would like Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Bills before we open the public hearing? Councilmember Ennis?
I take it that the parking requirements that would be met
Yes,
for
they
the
have
CUP?
plenty of parking for the uses included and for this future use.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions?
More process-oriented. If the P&Z is not able to meet prior to the next council meeting, does that have any negative consequences to whatever action we may or may not take?
The posting has to be to the newspaper by noon tomorrow, and staff is going to poll all 9 members with the expectation that we'll find a date where 5 of them can show up. So the plan is for them to make a recommendation.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Bills. With that, I'm opening the public hearing. I don't know if I have to hit that or not. Is there anyone signed up to speak for the public hearing, Madam Secretary?
No, Mayor, no one is signed up.
Is there anybody in the audience that's dying to speak about this but forgot to fill out the paperwork?
The applicant is present in the audience. If you have questions or would like to hear from her, she is not more than willing to come and speak, but she's gonna come and speak if you have questions.
Any questions? Bless you. God bless you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm closing the public hearing. So I've held the public hearing. This counts as first reading of the ordinance, and I have nothing left to do until the 24th of October. Is that true?
I make a motion that we approve this on first reading.
We are allowed to make a motion?
Yeah, but you're not finally.
Okay.
It says it.
I know,
we
but
can
I wasn't
take
sure if that was exactly what we could do. That's why I had skipped over it. Right, Alan, we can. Okay. Rock and roll, Mayor Pro Tem. There we go. So I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Bills. We're wishing you best of luck with finding a meeting date for next week.
Thank you.
We're now on item 10C. I see Ms. Land walking to the front. Consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance 2017-24 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, changing the names of 3 roads in Tahitian Village due to emergency response concerns, being Hawaii Court and Ori Court to Ori Court, Coco Lane to Nanny Lane, and Lay Court to Riva Court, within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas, providing establishing an effective date and move to include the second reading on October 24th, 2017 City Council agenda. Hi, Ms. Land.
Hello. Thank you. All right. So a little bit of background on this topic. Previously, duplicate and similar sounding road names were causing delays in emergency response times. And so Bastrop County took this to the Commissioner's Court, who established the Tahitian Village Road Renaming Committee. They received public input and renamed the roads outside of the Bastrop city limits, because that is where they hold jurisdiction. The city never renamed the roads inside Bastrop city limits. All right. The 3 roads within the subdivision would be changing Hawaii Court to Ori Court, Lay Court to Riva Court, and Coco Lane to Nani Lane. As you can see, they're all very short road segments. All right, what we've done this year is once current city staff was notified of the issue, we sent out notifications to the public hearing to residents. The public hearing was conducted September 26, 2017 at that city council meeting. After that meeting, we responded to concerns from residents. Those main concerns were, why were these roads chosen as opposed to the other road? What happens next, and when will this be official? All right, so in response to why these roads were chosen, all street names within Tahitian Village were evaluated by the Tahitian Village Road Renaming Committee, and these are the 3 within Bastrop city limits that had duplicates or similar sounding names. Hawea Court is duplicate to Hawea Lane. Cocoa Lane is duplicate to Cocoa Court. And Lay Court, Lye Court, and Westley Court are all very similar sounding, not to mention I'm not even sure if I pronounced that correctly. All of those cause issues. None of these are in general proximity to each other. Yes, they're in Tahitian Village, but they're very far apart. I mean, anybody that's driven through Tahitian knows if you go the wrong direction, it's going to take you a little bit to get back. And so that's why not only is it being a duplicate name, but they're very far apart from their duplicate road. All right, and we chose, well, we didn't. These roads were chosen based on the number of addressed homes affected. Hawea Court within the city limits has 5 homes, whereas Hawea Lane, which is outside the city limits, has 12 homes. Cocoa Lane doesn't have any homes within the city limits, whereas Cocoa Court has 3 homes. Lay Court has 1 home, and the other Lay Court or Lye Court has 8 homes. If you'll notice, Westley Court was renamed by the Commissioner's Court because it is also outside the city limits. So that, at least one similar sounding name has been taken care of. So what happens next? Pending the ordinance approval, notification will be sent to Bastrop County GIS to coordinate with additional regional systems. 911 response is more than just calling one dispatch center and sending somebody out, and there's a lot of regional coordination that goes on, and it's not just your public safety systems. I mean, think about Arcadian, that's not necessarily, that's not Bastrop Fire, you know, that's not Bastrop Police, that's not the sheriff. I mean, that's a private entity, right? So there are lots of systems working together, and they all need to be updated in a timely manner. Okay, so Bastrop County will help us coordinate with all of those systems. We'll send notification to all property owners, letting them know that the road names will be changed and provide an effective date for when that will happen. All right, we'll also send official address change letters to all homeowners. In that process, we also notify Bastrop County, Bastrop Central Appraisal District, the United States Postal Service, and city departments, including utilities, fire, police, and public works. Right. Once the effective date is reached, we will install new street signs, and we will also send reports to any consumer mapping systems, Google Maps, Apple Maps, OpenStreetMap, Who Funds, MapQuest, and any others that we can find a way to report. All right, so when will it be official? If you guys approve the ordinance, we can establish an effective date. Staff recommends doing an effective date of January 15th, 2018. Part of that is due to the holiday season. Everybody gets a lot of mail, there's coming and going of letters and packages. That can be very significant to people. We don't want any sort of gaps in transition there. And there are also upcoming elections, which require addresses, notifications, mailings, and we don't want to mess up any of those processes either. So we would like to wait until after the new year to make it effective. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Land? Seeing none, I do have a citizen signed up to speak, Vicki Frierson? Frierson, I'm so sorry.
Again, I wanted to just say that the inconvenience to me is monetary. It is not just contacting credit cards and everything else. I have to go contact a court system I have investments that I went through the court system to do, and I would have to notify them. They wanted it my street address. So I would have to go back through the court system to change those when that happens, and I don't know how long that would take. Therefore, I would not be getting my checks every month. This is my livelihood that you're affecting here. Whereas I don't know the other ones on Huia Lane. Do they have the same issue? Credit cards are easy. I can do that online, but not my livelihood.
Do we know if the post office will forward to the new address? They will, won't they, for like 6 months? So you would have 6 months to move your address over, and you'd still be getting your mail.
Yeah, but it's still going to cost me to go back to court.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate this situation.
Seven different checks.
I'm not sure if
and
we can...
I also have, they beat me. My security system went off and they beat me, Bastrop Police Department, to my house. They were there in no time flat. He had already secured the perimeter and everything. And that's just been 3 weeks ago. If you retrain your emergency response team to actually ask the correct address when you have streets that are renamed, that's an easy fix too. They already know that there's duplicates. Have it in front of them. Ask, is it Lane or is it Court?
I certainly appreciate the unique situation it finds you in. I hope you can appreciate that what I'm hearing from this land is that we're trying to serve the greater public, the full community, and not have a life-threatening call made where they're unable to locate the address. And I think we've tried to minimize the number of people impacted, but I totally understand when you're impacted, it's huge, and it doesn't matter how many other people could be impacted. I would assume, I have complete confidence in the city manager and staff that they've pursued any other avenue, and I will certainly make some phone calls and do anything I can. I don't know if we can help you with the specific instance that you're discussing with the court system. I have sympathies for you, but I'm not sure that we can address that unless there's something I'm not thinking of that anyone else is aware of.
Can our city attorney look into this and see what her situation is, if it's complicated enough that it requires an attorney, or if it's just a matter of a simple notification? Is that something you might be able to look into?
We can certainly do that if that's what you request.
Well, I would like to do that. I think that's a fair thing to do to help her get through this process so that it is as minimal impact as possible.
So Mayor Pro Tem Schiff, I guess my question would be, if we are unable to help her, does that, we still need to, if we can, unless you're asking us to pull this and put it on for another meeting to discuss?
No, I think I'm ready to, in fact, I'll make a motion that we approve this on first reading, but I would also instruct our city attorney to see what can be done to make it as simple and as inexpensive as possible to our citizen regarding this change.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
I second.
I have a second from Councilmember Jones. Is there any further discussion from anyone else on council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We're now moving to page 4. We're on item 10E, consider action to approve resolution R 2017-81 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving revised City Council rules of procedures, establishing a repealing clause and establishing an effective date.
Mayor and council, these rules of procedure were on last council meeting's agenda in a work session. I didn't receive any feedback other than the request to put into the rules that they would be reviewed by council at the first meeting of July every year. That was inserted, so they stand for your approval.
Council, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ennis.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Peterson. Tie goes to Councilmember Peterson tonight. Is there any further discussion on these rules and procedures? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We're now on the last item for individual consideration, 10F. Consider action to approve the first reading of Resolution Number 2017-79 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an agreement for the provision of Main Street program support between the City of Bastrop and the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement, repealing all resolutions in conflict, providing an effective date, and move to include on the October 24th, 2017 agenda for second reading. Ms. O'Brien.
Mayor and council, since the Bastrop Main Street program was funded in 2007, the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation has graciously funded the program at $40,000 annually. I'm excited to announce that this year they have increased that for the first time to $50,000. This is just a little bit of housekeeping. Since the project cost is over $10,000, state law requires us to do this public hearing. So this will be the first public hearing, and then we'll follow it up again at the October 24th meeting for approval. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, here's my problem. You're saying public hearing and it's not posted for a public hearing. And I don't think it's a public hearing. I think you just have to come.
I did not bring my agenda up with me. I may have screwed that up. Sean's not going to give me any money if I've screwed this up.
Yeah, I think all we're doing is considering an action to approve, and I think I have a motion waiting.
I have a motion to approve on first reading Resolution
Perfect.
2017-79.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any discussion from the dais? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We will be going into executive session. Those of you with the agenda can see there are 3 items that we'll be discussing, and as required by law, I will be reading all 3 items. 11A, City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to discuss positions affiliated with municipal court, including reviewing submittals for the request for qualifications for an associate judge or judges, and the position of prosecutor. 11B, City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code to discuss and deliberate litigation matters with special counsel to the City of Bastrop regarding excess ranch fund 6, LP case number 16-31367, case pending in United States Bankruptcy Court, Northern District of California, and the purchase of additional water rights as outlined in the agreement. 11C, City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to 551.074 to conduct a semi-annual performance evaluation of the city manager as required by her employment agreement. It is 8:58, and we are now in executive session. Okay, it's 10:27. I'm calling this meeting back to order. You're not even the first one. So on item 11A, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I move that on October 24th, we interview 2 candidates for the associate judge's position.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ennis, a second from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you, council. With respect to item 11B, I am willing to entertain a motion.
I have a motion. I move that we exercise our option to acquire additional water rights and instruct legal counsel and city staff to take the necessary steps.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Jones. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, council. I'm willing to entertain a second motion on item 11B.
Mayor, the second motion on 11B is upon completion of the well, legal counsel and staff are directed to acquire the deed for the 10,000 square feet for the well and the access to the well.
A second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Peterson. I have a second from Councilmember Jones. Is there any discussion regarding the 10,000 square feet motion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
I'm willing to entertain another motion on item 11B.
Madam Mayor, I move that we direct legal counsel to take necessary steps to dismiss the McCall case.
I second.
I have I have a motion from Councilmember Nelson. I have a second from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff regarding the McCall case. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Thank you, council. There are no further actions that are going to be taken as a result of executive session. We're now on item 13.
I move for adjournment.
I have a motion to
Second.
adjourn and second by acclamation. It is 10:30 and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.